I'm going to go ahead and start the session. I apologize. My flight, I was supposed to leave at 3:45, and that flight got canceled, and I was bumped down to the lower flight, which is massive. So my flight leaves at 2:20. So I'm going to leave here at around 11:30. So it's going to be a little bit shorter session. I apologize for that, but I preach tomorrow, so I need to get home. And yeah, and I'm not preaching in Minneapolis. I'm flying through Minneapolis. How many people here are from Minnesota? All right. I just happened to ask the Minnesotans. I don't know what it is. I was commenting. It seems like I ask people, and everybody's from Minnesota, and most of the group is not. I'm Todd Jones. I work for the Michigan District. I'm an assistant to the president for continuing education and New Start development. And I also work with a group that is partnered with by a number of the districts, Concordia Market. We're just launching. I'm not going to talk about Concordia Market here, but I encourage you, if you want more information, if you create content, if you produce Bible studies, books, resources, or you're a public speaker and you want to increase your impact in terms of visibility, what we're doing is we've created Concordia Market as a place to gather resources, people, and services to make it easier for churches to connect with their content. It's a free product, free ministry that we've organized because we believe that the priesthood of all believers, as they speak into the church, elevate the church. So we're trying to create a way of elevating the voices of the priesthood. Let's open with a word of prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for this morning and for the opportunity we have to talk about our digital footprint, our website presence, and making a shift to a visitor-centric approach to web design. Really, it's about communication. It's about how we communicate to those who might be seeking a congregation or might be seeking a relationship with you. And so I pray that you would guide our time together. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to try, I've got my laptop linked to my phone. Some of this I'm going to try to use live data. I've mostly done static slides, but some of it I'm going to try to use live websites so we can actually look at some of the websites. If it doesn't work, then we'll skip forward. It'll be a fail. But I will try and see how it goes. As I mentioned, this is about web design, but it's really looking at how are you communicating, what is the subtext of your communication to the visitors that come to your church or that might be interested in your congregation. Over 85% of people who choose a church to visit make that choice based off the website. Social media, not so much, because it's hard to find places on social media. They have to know somebody who knows your site. So a social media presence is necessary, it's important, it's valuable, but it actually acts as a second step in that somebody has to direct them almost always to your site. If you have been linked to the Chamber of Commerce of your community, the Facebook pages, if they allow you to do that kind of linking, friending, liking, sharing, then they can find it through visiting the community's website. But very few people actually go to a community's website. We moved to Michigan a little less than 5 years ago, and we didn't go to Milan. I live in Milan, Michigan. We didn't go to Milan's Facebook page until we lived in Milan. It's just people don't use social media to determine where they're going to live. So what I'm trying to say is a web page is important. But it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It doesn't have to be something that is refreshed often if its main purpose is just to get people to visit the church. So it's up to your level of skill and your level of capacity in the church. So what we're going to be talking about is what is the visitor-centric framework, and it's heavily influenced by StoryBrand. Did anybody go to Seth Hins's session? So this is very much influenced by the StoryBrand perspective. I wanted to get to his session, but I wasn't able to, so hopefully I won't contradict him, and we'll dovetail. We used to work together, so I think it's going to be okay. We're going to talk about how do you connect the theory to reality, and looking through templates. So the Michigan District, and we're going to make them available to anybody that's in this session. We've put together templates for a WordPress site that's based on this visitor-centric model. And that template also includes, for one site, a license for a front-end editor to make it easy to manage, so you don't have to dig into the back end, you don't have to know code, as well as a backup tool. And we'll talk more about that at the end of the session. I'll make sure I hit that because we do want to make that available. In our district, we make that those tools available. We also host for our congregations. We can't host for you. There's legal reasons we can't. But we host for our congregations that wish to do that. And we also provide professional photography, videography, and editors to help. Because we really believe our congregations should have the best websites available. Now, it's always optional, so we have about 10% of our churches that have used our services at this point. We continue to roll out more, but you know, sometimes people like it the old way. That's what we hear often is we kind of like the old website. And it's not visitor friendly, it's not visitor centric, but that's the way it goes. So we'll walk through the templates just quickly so you can decide, is this something I'm interested in? Or you can take the content and put it into your own site as you already have. Then we'll talk about the tools, but just very briefly. So let's talk about the visitor-centric website. There are 3 decisions that you have to make in putting together a website, and that is, who's your audience? You have to know who are the people who are likely going to visit. And you could say, well, people that live in my community, but what do you know about the people that live in your community? What's their age? What's their preferences in terms of style, in terms of where are they at in stage of life? Do they have children? Not children? Well, are they single? Are they married? The more you know your visitor, the more you can figure out what are the issues that might move them to visit your congregation. You have to know, what do they want? You know, what are their pressing needs? What are the questions that will lead them into your website? And how will you connect? What systems will you use to help them make a micro step toward your church? So for people who don't regularly go to church, it's extremely intimidating to think about actually going to church. There's a lot that they don't like about church. How many of you guys watch TikTok videos or are on TikTok? Okay, I've started doing that because I'm like really fascinated by that movement of TikTok, and it's probably because I tend to save them. Increasingly, I get more and more videos about people who tell stories about how toxic Christianity is on TikTok, and I'm saving them because I like to use them for sermon illustrations. Not like, look at how evil these people are, but I think people see these stories, some Christians will see the stories and say, maybe there's some truth to this. And I think we should speak into it, not hatred, but like, let's talk about it, let's have a conversation. So probably because I keep saving them, I get more and more of them. But there is this general conversation in the world around us that maybe church is toxic. So people are hesitant. What's the micro step? And it can be simply a connect button. It can be a button that allows them to have an online conversation. It could be something that directs them toward your social media account. But you have to figure out, how are we going to connect with them, because you want to begin that relationship online in order to help them as they make their visit to the church. So we're going to talk about those a little bit. Who is the audience? We're not going to go into demographic studies and all that, because you can do that. Most of your districts have access to a tool called Mission Insight, which can provide you all that demographic information. Free LCEF in most of our districts that have LCEF make that available. We have CEF. They've made it available for us, and it's a great resource. I'm not going to get into that, but I am going to say there's 2 approaches to web design. One of them says, look at me. So the strategy is, let's show people how wonderful our church is, and then they're going to want to come to visit our church. They're going to want to come and be a part of our church. So let's focus on the features of our church, the ministries we have, and let's focus on what we are doing or have done. And it's all about, look at me. I like to tell people, think about it like, where is this person at geographically related to you? Is this person standing next to you and you're having a conversation? Or is this person someone who's just come in the room and you're trying to woo them to come over and have a conversation? And if you have that view of you're trying to woo them, you're going to do that by making yourself attractive. Churches do that by saying, hey, look at all the stuff we've got going on. Look at how happy we all are. And look at our wonderful, band that we have, or look how big our organ is, or, all these kind of things. We try to focus on us. And what marketers have found is when companies do that, they actually create resistance because people say that's arrogance. And a lot of our congregations don't realize that's the message that they're giving as they focus on, oh, look at all the great features we have. Is they're actually creating resistance for many of the younger people toward coming to the church because it's viewed as arrogance. You think you know everything, but it's impossible to know everything. You got your act together. It must be fake. There must be something behind it. There's a high level of skepticism. So that's one option, and that's the option most churches do with their websites. Most congregations have a look at us approach to websites. The StoryBrand emphasizes a look at you. Like, wow, I want to know more about you. I'm glad you're here. Let's talk. It's all about, the focus is on the individual. And so the website features benefits and opportunities. How we benefit you where you are now, and opportunities we have to partner with you in where you want to go in life and what you want to do in life. So it's focused on where they are rather than us. Seems pretty simplistic. It's a little bit theoretical. We're going to go through some examples to see if I can illustrate it through some examples, because it is a little bit, you may be in your mind trying to figure out what exactly am I trying to say at this point. But this is a critical shift, because when you view the perspective of people standing next to us, and we're in a community setting, we're in a collaborative setting, you help people put aside their fears that you're going to take advantage of them, that you're going to manipulate them, or that you're going to impose your will upon them, which is the fears that drive a lot of people away from church. So you want to build a collaborative environment rather than a competitive environment. We're the best. When we think about look at me, we're going to focus on the goal there is to get them to hand over some control of their lives in exchange for good programs, good food, good music, whatever it might be. And when I mean control of their life, I mean like, an hour a week of their time, or an hour a week of their time for worship, an hour for Bible study, some of their money. That's what I mean by control. So you're trying to convince them that if they give up part of their life, they're going to get so much in return. And it's a transactional relationship dynamic that's involved in that. It was very effective up until the last 15, 20 years. It's not been that effective since. And you can even see this shift in marketing, where you still have a lot of brands that focus on features, or focus on how great they are, but increasingly you'll notice in marketing, if you pay attention, mostly it's focusing on how it benefits you. If you drive their car, if you drink their coffee, it's focusing on this look at you approach. In a look at you approach, the goal is to get them to join as a collaborator, to invite you to collaborate with them in life. So it's about forming a relationship, a partnership in life. So let's look at a couple of examples. These are static examples. And I chose not to do any Lutheran because I don't want to shame anybody. I wasn't sure who was going to be here. But it's not like we don't do this. But this is a congregation, Harbor Church, and I try to do one that it really is nice looking. They've done a great job in designing the website. But the overall meta message is, we're great. And then one that's kind of a traditional website. So Harbor Church, loving God by serving the community. That's their mission statement. That's not a bad thing to have a mission statement out there. We invite you to worship with us. So you get this sense that they have in their mind, you're over there and we're here. Already they've established there's a distance between us. And there is a distance between Christians and non-Christians. But if you highlight that distance, you're just emphasizing, wow, you're going to have to make a big move to get over here. There's going to be some big steps to get over here. You shouldn't have to do that. You don't have to do that. In-person worship, we hope to see you here at Harbor. And then the site from there, it's got a sermon, that's great. But from there it goes on to talk about how great we are. Like the mission, vision, prayer, and honor, this is all about us. And people do want to have these questions answered, so they're not wrong, but you don't necessarily have these as your front page. You don't have these as the ask for the visitor. You want to have a front page that's a simple, clear ask that's directing them to join you in collaboration. So this is a good second page, member page section, because it helps organize and focus the ministry. But if you have a visitor-centered website, you want the front landing page to be focused on that first step of getting them to visit your church, or getting them to engage in whatever the next step is, small group, home church, whatever it might be. So you wouldn't put this on there because this, again, is pointing to us. This is highlighting the difference between you and us. All their staff, that's good. But then it begins, and I didn't list all of them, but it just begins to list all the ministries and activities that it has as the church. This is all, look at all the great stuff we have. Come and you can have some of this great stuff as well. And it goes through children's, high school. It's just a collection, and it just goes on forever. It's a one-page design, which is really a good design nowadays. But I didn't copy them all down because it would have just gone on forever. But it's just a collection of ministries and activities. And the message, the meta message is, we're here, you're there, but look at how great it is over here. Why don't you come on over here and give up there to come here? And people struggle to give up there to come here nowadays. And that's why program-centered websites are not very effective in today's market. This is more of what I call a traditional website. This is a Baptist church in my town where I live, Milan, which is a tiny little town. So this is their website. It's very this is like a good example of what not to do. But you'll notice that that's the main part of their website, is it center section. It's all just activities. Here's how you give. Here's our newsletter. Here's our bulletin. Come look at us. And that's their website. They do have a map and how to find us, but that's their website. It's very us-centered website, not engaging. Why do I want to go to this website? What's the message of this website? You can tell it's written for members, no intention at all for guests. So that's a us-centered. Let me show you a you-centered, some examples of you-centered. Go forward. So this is Grace Christian Church, and again, very much like the last one, it has its tagline, its mission statement. Oh, I should go back though. Let me see if I can do that. You'll notice even their tagline though is focused on the visitor. If you remember the last tagline, which is here's what we are, here's what we're about. This is like, come here to experience this. Join us to experience this. It's really focused on how being a part of us is part of bettering who you are. Even their mission tagline is subtly focused on those outside and not those inside. But you really get it as you go down beyond these, as they show different ways to connect. And these are opportunities to partner. It's not, here, look at, we got this great small group program. It's like, connect, get plugged in, let's partner together. It's an invitation to do life together. Same thing, they got the pastor and the... Now here, the serve us, what they've determined is the people that are likely to look for a church in their location are people who are looking for opportunities to impact their community. So they've created this section here to show how you can partner with us to impact your community. It's not look at what we will do for you, it's look at how we together can do something bigger for our community. That's an us-centered focus, collective focus, versus a you-centered focus. Does that make sense? I don't want to keep kind of like beating the horse, but that's what I mean by it. That's the shift that needs to happen before you start talking about what will we say, what will it look like. You should think about what is the meta message. And the meta message that's effective today, and I think you go back in the Bible and you actually find the way Jesus approached it as well, is we collaborate. We're in life together to collaborate. And rather than creating or highlighting the difference that does exist between us and them, let's emphasize the unity we have, the commonality that we have. We care about our community. We serve our community. Come and serve with us. We care about people who grow in their faith and their relationship with Jesus. You care about growing in your relationship with Jesus. Come grow with us. Come be a part of what we're doing as a church. That's the nature of the visitor-centered.
So this visitor center, though, seems to assume that people are already Christian.
Not necessarily, because non-Christians love to serve their community. So it doesn't necessarily, it's a common interest of, we want our community to be better. So it assumes people, they have apparently done their market analysis and said, people that visit our church, they often, one of the things they like is they like to serve their community. So we like to serve our community, let's serve our community together. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be in your area, but it is, if you're targeting younger people, that is a pretty common thing, is they tend to like to see their communities bettered. I live in Milan, a very small town in Michigan, and it has a very young kind of downtown urban renewal group. Urban renewal, that's not right. Downtown renewal group, but it's younger people. They're in their 40s, 30s, and 40s. There may be a couple in their 50s, but no older people. And they all are about renewing their downtown. A number of churches are partnering with that small church.
Scroll up for a second.
I may have to go all the way back because it's just the nature of the...
Well, you had said, right there.
Yep.
You said you're from Milan, a very small town.
Right.
What's up with that? Is that Milan?
No, this is not Milan's group. No, I was just talking about something completely different. This website. This website is not Milan. I don't know where this is at, but it's obviously a big town, big city. Yeah. But the point I was making is, in Milan is an example that the younger people really care about their community and they want to see their community thrive, and the church also cares about the community. So that's a partnership that can be formed. You can emphasize that commonality that we have in seeing our community thrive. You're gonna.
Yeah, I really appreciate your perspective and the orientation to this type of site. I entirely agree. I think a big factor, and I'm sure you're going to be talking about this, so I'm sorry if I'm...
No, that's okay.
Is how do people get to that site? Because people don't know to look for this site to get to see what they want to see. They're probably Googling other things to get to it. So that's just as critical. The other thing, just an observation, there are so many great sites out there, many of which are in the Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod, and other related agencies that are so good at doing this, they forget to put in the information. I've been to a number of sites as I travel around a lot. I never found the service times.
Yes.
I never found the staff list. Now that might be by design.
Right.
But they're so good at doing this and partnering that the informational part of it is lost. And I think that's a shame for many of those sites. If it's not intended to be that, that's great. But there are often several reasons you need to have a site that is functional. But I agree entirely with the front side of it being what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I guess we'll have be the Alleluia choir because I'm the exact same. It looks pretty, but you should tell them what's your address, what's your time of the service, how do I call you, and what do the people look like that I'm going to meet. If it's staff, that's a good thing. I'm 100% with that. It's so frustrating being a district person and relatively new to the district. When I visit, I used to try to use their websites, and I found out I can't do that. I have to actually do our district directory. So, yeah. I think, let me see, am I going to do another? Yeah, this is another example, more of a, let's see, what is this, a smaller, I'm trying to think of, no, this is also another big church. But notice what they're saying is their target audience are people who are seekers, people who are seeking a relationship with God. So they've identified four things that people are seeking. They're seeking to know God. They're seeking to find freedom. So this church also has Celebrate Recovery, things like that. People are searching for purpose in their life, and they want to make a difference. So those are the four characteristics they found of their guest that they can say, we care about these four things. You care about one or two of these things. Let's partner together and let's make a journey. Let's journey together through this process. So that's the idea of having a visitor framework. And the reason it's helpful is because there are a lot of websites that look really great, and there are a lot of really good websites, but it's important to know why is it good. And the good websites that are visitor-centric, that are beneficial and helpful in getting people to come to the church are websites that are designed with the partnership of the guest in mind versus emphasizing subtly the differences in mind. So again, ways that the church serves the guest or the visitor. And it's got a collection of events and activities people might be interested in. So who is the audience? What do they want to know? In general, audiences wants to know these 4 things. Visitors, why should they consider your church? And that's that whole, how can you partner with them? How are you a valued part of their life? So that's what we previously talked about. What can they expect during the visit? What will it look like? What will it feel like? What are they expected to do during the service? What's the time of the service? And the location. So it gets exactly what you're saying. These should all be very prominent on the church. I always say it should be, if not the very first scroll thing, then right below scrolling. But the reason I say this is because the design aesthetic today in websites is to have this big picture in the top. And people just, for some reason, that's like the end design aesthetic. And so, okay, you may have to bow to that, but then as soon as people start to scroll, you can have this information pop up. The time of the service and location should be prominent. Why might they consider attending? So you have different ways. You can point features, but that's other-centered. Or you can share a common value and show how attendance might help people in their journey. And that's the other-centered approach. Identifying what are common values that we can articulate and celebrate together, and then how can we help people in a spiritual journey. And that's really the story brand aspect. But I will say, in thinking about these, you want to think about them in terms of they should point to Jesus. At some point, Jesus needs to be the ultimate, because our business at the end of the day is always about Jesus. We serve our community, and we're not going to serve our community with strings attached, but we serve our community because of Jesus. When we get together for worship, we want the worship service to be done in excellence. We want it to be inspiring, but the inspiration is ultimately what Jesus is doing for us. So the emphasis should be on Jesus. If we put the emphasis on it makes us better people, it makes us more complete people, that's where people will end their journey with us, is once they feel like they're complete people. If we set the end point Jesus, they will stay with us to Jesus. And hopefully Jesus will get them beyond that, because that's the role of the Holy Spirit. So it should focus on Jesus, and you have to make sure you don't overpromise and underdeliver. And this is probably the challenge for small churches. I work with a number of our congregations that are small, because large churches tend to have a communications team of their own. They do their own stuff, and that's great. Small churches tend to say, we don't have a choir, we don't have Sunday school, we don't have a youth program, we don't have and don't have, and a lot of don't haves, and then they don't, so then they say, what do we offer? And they want to compete, because again, they're thinking features, programs, they're thinking about that, and the reality is a small church is very good at relationships, and that's usually one of the central values that people have and desire. So focus on what you do well as a church. You might say, well, we do potlucks well. Well, you wouldn't want to say we have great food, because that would be a feature, but you can say, we do community well, and there's an empty seat for you in our community. In fact, let's do community together. How can we be a community together? So focus on what you can do, and don't worry about having a long list of stuff that you don't do well, or over promising and under delivering. If you're really not a friendly church, don't say you're a friendly church. Just don't have to say, well, we're not friendly, but we surely try. Just leave it. Just don't mention that. But if you say you're a friendly church, you better be a friendly church. Because as soon as someone comes in and they experience that lack of friendliness, they're going to know you're a hypocritical church, and they're not going to come back. So think about what you can promise. Don't get hyper if you have you feel like a very weak promise. It's okay. It's better to be authentic and to express what you do well, even if it seems very small. It may be, and it will be, by the power of the Holy Spirit, just what's needed. Examples. Oops. You know what? I'm going to skip that because that's part of the thing online. It'll be out of time. But if let me see. I'll go back. I wish I could make that a little bit larger. These are 3 churches that I think do a great job of expressing values. Mosaic, Midtown.org, and I'll send you this PDF. At the end, there's a QR code that you can link. They told us speakers that we could, upload a file, but apparently that was something the organizers had to do, and we missed that. I missed that window, so it's not on my Whova app anymore. Does anybody know how to say that? Is it Whova?
It should be Hoover,
That's what I thought too. Like, who's going?
but yeah.
But
I'll just call it the BPM app.
yeah, okay. I don't know. All right.
People are calling it Wova, so if you hear Wova and Hoover, it's 2 dialects of the same word.
Yeah. All
I
right.
believe it's Hoover.
That's what I think too. Is who's going? But yeah.
We should look on their website.
Va in Spanish.
Spanish.
Yeah. Of course, who is not Spanish, so maybe it's my twisted brain. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. So if you at the end, you'll have an opportunity to say, yeah, I'd like to have the PDF, and I'll send you the PDF, and that way you'll have a copy. You don't have to write everything down. But Mosaic, Midtown.org, they have a really, I think, helpful section on why people should come, values that are articulated, that are guest-centered, as well as OneOakChurch.com. And Grace Sterling. These are all Michigan churches, but I think they do a good job. I think Sterling is a relatively small church. The others are larger. And of course, we're going to have a template, and we're going to show you our example of what we do. But examples of how attendance might help them in their journey. Again, these are areas that are common touch points, like community, meaning, the need for God's grace. This can't be should not be underestimated, cannot be overstated. People know that they are desperate for hope. There is an increasing number of deaths by despair, which is kind of the new term for suicide. And people are there's this sense of hopelessness and isolation. And that's exactly, part of the reason Jesus came, was to take that guilt, which is creating that hopelessness, that despair. Because in our inner selves, we know that we are poor, miserable sinners. It's not just in our liturgy, it's the words in our being. When we consider our failures and our faults, we are poor, miserable sinners. And yet the Christian church, our churches, declare your sins are forgiven. God says, never will I remember your sins. I will remove them from my memory. He washes and cleanses us from all unrighteousness. And that's why we exist. That's the message that drives us as well. So it's good to emphasize that. They may not understand it. You have to emphasize it in the way they do understand it. Like, there's a way of dealing with that darkness that can overwhelm you and keep you up late at night or wake you up early in the morning. Their need for value or the need for acceptance, and the need, you want to avoid the need for information and knowledge. The reason for that is because people raised in our educational system that are like 35, 38 and under have been taught there is no truth. And all knowledge is contextual. And so if you emphasize we have knowledge, you're going to highlight the difference between Christians who acknowledge the Bible as authoritative and the world which says there is no authoritative. So you're just going to highlight and create kind of conflict for yourself. Yes?
Yes, so to try to understand again the distinction. So if you're coming from how you would express this, if you're making it a more other-centric, would you talk about how our members have discovered community, meaning God's grace, etc., versus are you looking for community, meaning then come over here?
I would say join us and be part of our community. Join us as we experience God's grace. So it's that idea of not we have it, because that almost becomes the feature, right, but invitational to them. Having a story like a sidebar story, someone's picture, and just almost a meme, but a little bit longer than that, of somebody that just has a quote that they said about God's grace and how they experience God's grace. Testimonials on sites are very, very powerful. We don't like to do them as Lutherans, but they are very, very powerful. People see someone I recognize. I don't know that person, but I can identify with that person, and they're saying something that I felt, and they're expressing, that it's changed in them. So they're very powerful. What do they expect during the visit? So just to be aware, people don't want to stand out. These are all old stuff. People don't want to stand out. They don't want to do the wrong thing. And they don't want to be asked to do something that they don't want to do. So you have to assure them these are not going to happen. And then don't let them happen. But I think we're hopefully beyond that of having visitors stand up and acknowledge themselves in a Sunday morning. That's a huge fear. But you want to recognize, you have to articulate, we know it can be difficult, we know it can be stressful. We promise you're not going to be asked to do these things. You're not going to be, we're not going to put a pink flower, on your lapel. There was a time when churches would do that. They would have like a special, in fact, one of the churches I pastored at when I first got there, a lady had crocheted like a little Luther rose, with on like that little plastic grid. I don't know what that is, not crochet, but whatever that is. It's whatever that plastic grid, and they cover it with yarn. Is that what it is? Yeah, but the thing was like the size of your hand. And then they would pin it on visitors. And when I got there as a pastor, that we visited the first time and they did that, I'm like, really? I mean, it was like, men don't wear things like that. It was like really awkward, and it took a long time because, this lady had done it. They had a, group of people. It was like so hard to get rid of that. But that's the kind of stuff that visitors like, I'm not ever coming to a church. So you have to articulate, we're not going to do this. That's the point is, you can't just say nothing. You have to say, we're not going to do that. You're not going to be asked to do anything like that in some kind of a promise statement. Okay, it's frozen. There we go. So here's an example of a statement. Visiting a church can be stressful. We want to do our part to minimize potential stresses for your first visit. And here's our promises. You'll not be asked to do anything embarrassing. You will be welcomed as you are. You'll be encouraged to join us in giving thanks to God for His gifts, so we want you to participate. You will discover more about God's active love in our lives and be challenged to experience the fullness of life. That is ours to follow Jesus. So we tell them, here's what's going to happen. Come as you are. Not going to be asked to do anything. So it's an example of a very short promise statement. And I like to use the language of promise because it's a covenant you're making to them, and people understand that. Are there any questions about this? Yeah.
Would you put something in there about communion?
So what about communion statements? I would put that in this section as well. So they know what to do about communion. So when we look at our template, I don't remember if we have it in, I think we do in some of our templates have it, some don't. So we have a one-page template, which generally is for small churches that don't have a lot of staff, and it's almost a set it, forget it, like once a year you refresh it and that's it. I don't think it has it in there because it's just a one-page thing. But our other templates do have it in there. We do have a place for that statement. It's important to say, what you do in communion and in a loving way while you're doing it. Set those boundaries so they know, okay, this is what they're talking about. Have a picture of people either in line to take communion or receiving communion so they know, oh, that's communion. That's what, in case somebody has never been to church and doesn't know what communion is. Other comments? Was that for you?
I was going to ask if you had an example of where you would, of a website that has something similar to this.
Yeah, when we get to our templates, we'll do that. I guess we're going to do that. So here it is. So this is the in-person worship gatherings. That's way too tiny. I don't think I can make it bigger though. But it's so this section here is when it takes place, how to gather in person or where it's at. It's got the address and the time. This is on a follow-up page to the front page. And then this section has the promises. You won't be embarrassed. You will not be asked to do anything embarrassing. We won't shake you down for money. You will be welcomed. You'll be encouraged. And then the frequently asked questions is where you get to communion, dress, and the like. So this is part of the content you'll get, when you do it. But it provides it as a fact, a frequently asked questions section.
So that's problematic for me in my brain because I see all that text and I'm like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
So do you have suggestions of how to make it more succinct, maybe?
Well.
I mean, sometimes, you do have to spell it out. Sometimes it's just a necessity.
Yeah.
But
Well, what I'd encourage, the free templates doesn't allow you, you don't have the access to a plugin. WordPress has a number of plugins that let you do like an accordion effect. So it won't be a complete thing of text. You'll have the headlines and then they can click on the ones they're interested in. But the paragraphs themselves are pretty short. We try to keep them pretty short. But if you develop something that's better, we are open to it. This is, again, the second page. The front page just very quickly, like in a short 3-line paragraph, summarizes this page. So that's kind of your short. You could throw in images, but yeah, for our sake, this is what we did. So it's easier for us because when we give them the website, it's done. We've taken all the photos. The fewer photos we have to add into it to make that transition, the easier it is for us to do as a district. Time of the service, it should be very prominent, should be visible without scrolling. Be specific for the next service. So what I'm trying to get at here is we have a number of websites that we've worked with where in Michigan, because it's cold so much of the year, when it is warm, everything is different. There's probably a lot of states that are that way where the weekends are highly, highly valued. So a number of our churches will have 2 services until it's warmer, and then they'll go to 1 service. Or they may shift the time down earlier in the morning so people have more of the day. And so churches would like to say, on our website, let's say September through May, here's our times of the service. And then June through August, here's our times. Don't do that. If you change your service times, change it on the website and then change them back to reflect the next Sunday. Don't try to I don't want to mess with it, so I'm going to give you a paragraph to explain when the services are, and you got to whip out your lunar calendar app on your phone to find out, is the moon in the new Gibeah stage, or is this a 5th Sunday? Don't bother with that. Just what is it for the next Sunday? There are a number of plugins in WordPress. We don't use one in our app. I don't particularly care for them, but a lot of churches use that where it's like a countdown to the next service. You can do that as well. If you have multiple services, briefly describe the format of that service so that people understand it's different. If you have a traditional service and everybody comes as they are, but the reality is 90% of the members are going to come with business casual or even a suit jacket, then just tell them, this service, you're welcome to come as you are. Most of our people are going to show up with a suit jacket. Because if you say come as you are and they come in shorts and they're the only people in the shorts, you set them up for failure. So you just have to take it with the way it is with your church. You don't tell your people you have to start wearing shorts so everybody's comfortable. But let people know. The location, this is just pretty obvious, but most people are going to view your website from a phone, mobile, so it should be a clickable link that allows them to navigate from your website to your church. The address should be visible again without scrolling. I encourage text directions to parking areas, and from the parking area to the inside of the church. When you arrive at the church, you'll be on North Street. Take a right on West Street, and you'll see our parking lot across from the church, or at the end of the building, and the main door is the one marked this. So you want to think, if I've never been to my church, how do I get to the parking? And even some of the small churches, I'm preaching at a very small church, 15 people. It's a dual parish, so one of the churches, only 15 people come on Sunday. It's in the middle of nowhere. And the first time I preached there a year ago, and it was snow on the ground, and I was the only person that got there, because apparently, even though they're a very traditional church, everybody shows up on time or 5 minutes late to start the building up and running. And I'm like, I have no idea where to park. Because they didn't have it was just like on the corner of a not cornfield, because it was the middle of two fields. It's like, I have no idea where to park. And I parked somewhere, and there's like, oh, maybe this is wrong. So I moved and parked another way. It's like, do I park parallel? There was no parking lot, just fields. And they needed to have some directions, like, how do you get to this place? How do you park there? Turned out they were like, yeah, you can just park wherever you want. They didn't really care. And then when it melted and I saw, no, I was actually like part of their cemetery. I didn't know that. It was covered by snow. You didn't know. It was like, it was parked on Schmidt. It was like, yeah, my wheels weren't on people, but I was like, why would they say it's okay? I'm like, in a cemetery. They're probably thinking, man, that guy's a jerk. He's parking in our cemetery. Okay, so directions is good. To the main entrance and then where the restrooms are. Like, you come in the front door, you'll see the restrooms down the hall to your right. And the worship area, don't call it sanctuary because I won't know, the worship area is immediately in front of you, or it's down to all to the left. Think through those things and provide directions for them. If you have visitors center, that's great. Direct them there, but don't say that's where you'll get information, because there may not be anybody at the visitor center and they may not want to have that interaction. So just to be aware of it. So that's all what I just said. So here's an example from the template. The worship entrance is located just off the main street. When you arrive at the main street entrance, you'll find a guest parking in front to your left. As you enter the building, the worship space will be in front of you to your left, and the washrooms are located to the right of the entrance. You'll see signage for a welcome desk. The attendant will be happy to answer any questions. So, it'll go on to longer text if you were to click on it, but it gives you this clickable map and the time of the service and the location all in one little pane, one little section. And this is more of the detail page of it. So it's a continuation of the article. It's got a couple of pictures that show what the outside of the building looks like, so you can recognize where you're supposed to go, as well as a clickable map. And then inside the building, points of interest, highlighting the sanctuary, highlighting restrooms, and if you have a coffee station, refreshment station, you want to highlight that as well. So again, people just feel comfortable navigating the building. And so that's an example that's on the template. Okay. These are secondary questions that visitors have. Will my children fit in? What's your accommodation for children? And a lot of congregations we work with, they say, we no longer have a Sunday school. We don't have enough kids. And that's okay. It's a reality. Don't say you have Sunday school if you have one child that shows up once a month. Because then you may have a guest with kids who's like, okay, where's the Sunday school? Oh, I'm sorry, little Teddy didn't come, but we'll get Martha. She teaches Sunday school, and Martha will be with your child, stranger, in a room all by themselves. Don't do that, but figure out, how are you going to do children's ministry? What does children's ministry look like for your church? And I'll give you an example of one strategy where I worked with a small congregation, didn't have children's ministry, and they emphasized instead the fact they valued families raising their children in the faith. And here's 3 ways that we help families, support families in doing that, because we value children growing their faith in their families. So there's a way to work around it that's more than just simply saying, we love kids, but we just don't have any, because that acknowledges, like, we're not on your journey. You're not part of our journey. We're not on your journey. So these are questions that need to be answered, and I'm running out of time, so I want to go quickly through them. So here's an example of the children's ministry from the template. So these are the values from a church. Maintain a safe, growing environment, value diversity, value gospel-centered language, partnering with families and spiritual development. So this is all about why we value doing children's ministry. It's not about, here's the program we have for children's ministry. And the reason it's good to start with the values is you're clarifying why you do what you do, and that's what people buy into. They buy into your values first and then your programs. too often we advance the program and people don't know why you're doing the program. What's the outcomes of the programs? Start with the why and then move to the what. I think it's also important, churches have to think through, like, how are you maintaining safety? And what about a sick policy this day and age? Like, schools have sick policies. Churches actually should have sick policies for Sunday school, for children's ministry, and articulate that. That's saying we really do care about the kids that come to our church by having something down about, if they're not feeling well, they got a fever, please don't bring them. It just articulates we really do care about our children, especially, again, post-pandemic churches. This is an example, and I'm not going to have time to go through it because I'm really running short of time, but again, it'll be in the PowerPoint. This is the statement that we sent out, and it took a lot of coaching to get the people in the congregation used to saying we don't have Sunday school, but it basically is saying we partner with families in raising their children, and we did that in that church by having a children's message, and then I produced take-home devotional guides for families based off the children's message. So it's kind of like I taught a brief form of that lesson. The parents emphasized through that devotional the lessons and had conversations, and there was activities for 3 age ranges. So kind of developed that resource, and we had a lot of families that joined our church because of that. They didn't like being separated from their children. So somehow think about how are we helping families with their children, because people do want to know where does my child fit into this community, into this congregation. And if you don't have the resources or the capacity to do something that intentional, simply say we value families teaching their children the faith. And here's some books we recommend. Here's some resources we recommend to help accomplish that. Okay. How will we engage them? These are, in StoryBrand, they call them call to action. This is like buttons that people submit forms. It enables some kind of interaction from the website. It's a micro step to their visit. So it's, get more information. There's a really slick tool, but I haven't figured out where it's at because I want to see if we can replicate it for our templates. It is, plan your visit. And you click on it, and it has like options that they select, and then it sends them an email with everything in it that's clickable and helps them to plan their visit. I haven't done one yet because I'm not exactly sure why it needs to be that complicated to visit a church, but I kind of like it. It's a next step piece to it. Does anybody here have a church that does that? I've seen it increasingly lately, but I don't know.
Seth talked about it in his thing, though, and talked about how a call to action requires them to give an email address or a phone number,
Yep.
which therefore allows you to be in the driver's seat as far as reaching out to the family.
Absolutely, yeah.
He said that's really the ultimate goal of it.
Yep, it's that micro step of allowing us to begin to have that conversation early. Yep. So visiting a social media page, so it's a button to visit the social media page, view a video, request more information, request prayer, or sign up. Those are kind of the pieces that ultimately get you their email address. And by giving you their email address, they're giving you permission to use that email address. But you do want to articulate how, the limitations. Oh, I skipped one, but I do want to go back. It's critical that all call to actions are functioning and supported. So Concordia Market, we're launching, and we did a number of forms and a number of QR codes, and one of the forms it's sent to the admin rather than to the staff. And I'm the admin, and I have not been checking my email since I've been here. Somebody sent an email, and then they emailed me. It was like, I sent that, and no one responded. And I'm like, why didn't someone respond? And then it found out, it went to me and not them because I forgot to do the form properly. So you want to make sure that it's going to the right people. Yeah, test it. The templates have a form tool built into them. It's the free version, which is somewhat limited, but it does allow you to do forms to multiple people. It's nice. SEO, search engine optimization, that's a different topic. We're not going to have time for that, to spend a great deal. Search engine optimization. The district, so when you sign up, if you're interested in being part of that webinar that we're going to be doing. Michigan District's going to be doing a webinar in the fall on SEO, improving search engine optimization, improving visibility. We'd certainly be glad to have you participate with that training that will take place. So we're not going to have time to walk through the templates. I can give you, let's see, I don't know why it's, yeah. This is the sample template. We like when churches, so there's two ways to handle this. We like having the church showing the front door because it helps people to know where to go. It's that or it's showing people, faces. One of those two options should be there. The template does allow this to be a video, and we have a couple of examples of videos, but I didn't bring one because I wanted it to be a static page. So you can have like a video on loop that's like a 15-second, 30-second video. That's also engaging. This is the one-page template that's just for set it and forget it. The address is the top with a clickable link. Social media icons are there, and then the call to action is to contact us. And so this is the 3 values that are in our template. You don't have to run with these, but these are the 3 values of why we gather for worship. This is, again, I said start with why and end with what. The why we worship is we gather to receive, so emphasizing the sacraments. We gather to encourage, emphasizing the community aspect of worship, and gather to care, emphasizing our service focus. Those are the reasons why we do Sunday mornings. This is why we, so that's our template. It's not the only answer, and a lot of our churches come up with their own answer, and that's fine, but these are examples of 3 reasons why. And what I'm going to do is I had to do the shared screen because I was going to go live, but I'm going to go down to the QR code because I am hitting a hard end. The other examples, the other templates build off of that and include a members page, a members section. So the design that we like to see is the front page be all about the first-time guest, and then you have in a menu the members section, which kind of looks like a traditional website. So the guests get first views, members get the second views. Often what happens is churches will have the members get the first view of the web page, and then the guests have to go to I'm interested in visiting, or I'm new here, or about us. So that's a design strategy that we encourage. This QR code should take you to a form. I said should. Does it work for everybody? Yep. Okay. Should take you to a form. Fill that out. You'll get the PDF of this. As I mentioned, if you desire to have the templates, if you're a WordPress guru and you just want the templates with the content, we can send that to you as a package, a self-installing package. If you want us to help you install it in your server, you want to talk about, I don't even know what a server is, this will allow you to create a conversation with me, and we'll be glad to work with you. Because you're not covered under the Michigan District insurance policy, because you're not in the Michigan District, we can't install it on our server. We have to pay a whole lot more for our insurance. So you have to do it in your server. It allows you to use that template and the Beaver Builder tool, and there's a whole series of training videos that will be available to you as well, which is a front page editor. It makes it relatively simple to edit the pages and the templates. So if you're interested in that, or you just want to have the text file of the content that's there, it will also give you that text file, so you don't have to retype everything. Yeah, thank you. Are there any questions? I got about 3 minutes. Any questions? I apologize that I have to leave early.
I'm wondering about some of us just staying and talking and sharing ideas after you go. So I'd be happy to facilitate that. But I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah.
I think there are ideas in the room that might help us.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
No, I think it's a great idea. Yeah. That worked for everybody. Those who want to stay and be a part of the conversation, see what everybody else is doing. I'd value whatever comes out of that, even though I'm not going to be able to be here to hear it. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope this is helpful. If I didn't answer something that you had a question about, send me an email and I'll be glad to do that. So thank you very much. God's peace. Thanks.